Let's return to the devastating earthquake in Nepal, and the death toll has now soared into the thousands. Aid agencies are sending humanitarian teams to affected areas, but access is still proving extremely difficult. Professor Andrew McLeod is the former UN Emergency Coordinator for the 2005 Pakistan earthquake, which killed 75,000 people. He joins us now live from Melbourne. Professor, good evening, and thank you for making time for us tonight. Can you give us a sense of the scale of this earthquake in Nepal and how it compares to the Pakistan disaster?
Well, the three most important criteria when judging an earthquake are how large it is, how deep it is, the shallower the more dangerous, and how close it is to population centres. This earthquake was larger than the Pakistan earthquake on the Richter scale. It was much shallower, and more people live within 100 kilometres radius than they did in Pakistan. So, unfortunately, this is a larger earthquake by those characteristics than the Pakistan earthquake was.
All right, so with that in mind, what are your fears for Nepal over the coming days and weeks?
I think what you've just said will come true over the next few weeks. That is, lots more information flooding in from very remote villages. Many villages take a couple of days to walk to in the best of times. I was just in Nepal around about this time last year. So you'll start to find more information flowing in about villages that have been devastated, and it's the ones that can't speak now, the ones that are buried under rubble or miles away from any communications, which are the ones that I'm most worried about. And as these stories come through, the logistics challenge, which will be borne largely by the Nepalese army, in getting aid supplies out to these remote villages up mountaintops will be really, really hard.
OK, so what lessons can be learnt from Pakistan about how to coordinate that huge task of recovery?
The most important lesson that comes out of Pakistan is command and control. Foreign NGOs and foreign aid workers must respect the local structures on the ground and must take their direction from a command authority, which generally in natural disasters will be the military, as it is here in Australia in the case of large natural disasters.
OK, and how long did that take to occur in Pakistan? Was that a natural process, or did you learn on the way?
Oh no, we learnt on the way. We were implementing a brand new implementation system in Pakistan called the cluster approach, but that's now been bedded in for 10 years. It normally takes about a week or two for different people to sort themselves out and for those personality matches to come together. That usually takes a week or two. I would estimate this relief effort will take about the same period of time as Pakistan did, which was 3 to 6 months, and then the recovery and reconstruction, that'll take another 8 to 10 years. So people in Australia, be generous when donating to Nepal. They're really going to need it.
OK, so we know that there was 75,000 killed in Pakistan. We're now talking at about 3,000. It's a bit of a macabre process, I suppose, but can you speculate about what we might be seeing in terms of numbers lost here in Nepal?
Well, the most macabre thing I can say is dead people don't need help, and what we should be concentrating on is not those that have died, but those who have survived. And keeping the survivors alive and keeping them from dying is the most important. However, to come to your question, it's a larger earthquake than Pakistan was. The terrain is very, very similar to Pakistan. It was shallower and closer to population centres. So, unfortunately, I would expect the death toll to be in the tens of thousands. How many tens? I don't know, but I hope it's low.
All right, so let's talk about how you did stop more people dying in Pakistan, particularly the spread of disease and sanitation. What was your sort of hierarchy of needs or response in that disaster?
Well, the big threat in Pakistan that we don't have in Nepal is in Pakistan we were heading into winter, so handling 20 feet of snow and sub-zero temperatures was a challenge we had then. But a challenge in Nepal that they will have is spread of measles. It's strange, we don't think of measles in the Western countries, but in population densities that you get in displaced persons camps, spreading of measles can be the biggest killer, particularly of children. And then you need to build latrines. In Pakistan we had to build 200,000 pit latrines. Something similar may be needed in Nepal if you have 3 or 4 million people affected and 1 million people made homeless. And then of course it's the delivery of water and the delivery of high protein and high vitamin enriched foods that are very, very important. But the most important thing is getting the local economy restarted so people can refine their normality and go back to their normal lives. And restarting that economy and restarting employment and restarting jobs is critical.
To what extent do you respond purely to the sort of physical needs of people, maybe, as you just said, restarting the economy, getting buildings back up to shape? How much are you focusing on that versus maybe some of the traumatic effects that people have been through, obviously, possibly losing family members and children, for instance.
Well, that's right. I mean, post-traumatic stress disorder will be something that will impact Nepal for generations because of this. It's one of the reasons emergency education is something that's not often thought about. But UNICEF will run out there and they'll set up some emergency schools, and this is so important. Particularly for children, you need to give them a sense of mental normality as fast as you can. So setting up schools will put children back in a semi-normal environment, but it will have the secondary benefit of freeing up parents of the day-to-day care of their child for certain numbers of hours during the day. And that will give parents the opportunity to start to ask, how do we restart our family? How do we get back to normality? And that psychosocial support is incredibly important from the beginning as well. Food, water, medical supplies, psychosocial support, and you haven't even begun to talk about how do we fund the rebuilding of the roads, the rebuilding of the schools, the rebuilding of the homes.
All right, it's challenging to get your head around, isn't it? Professor Andrew McLeod, thank you very much for talking to us tonight.
Thank you.